morning, Atherton High School. So we've reached the final week or so here at the end of this school year, finally. I'm thinking back to April 6th and all the discussions we were having around what the rest of the school year might look like and what this NTI, non-traditional instruction thing was and what it could be and what that meant in the way of learning activities and grades. So for this uh, final faculty meeting of the school year, I want to talk about end of year grading, including what that means in the way of students who are receiving incompletes. Also want to talk a little bit about professional development, the senior drive event that's coming up, um, and some other end of year important things to think about. So, your goal for today is to be watching this YouTube video first, and then at 9 a.m. Today, Monday, May 18th, you will video conference with your NTI Collaboration Group, the same group that you met with back on April 6th when we first began the discussion. There are a few guiding questions that I have for our NTI Collaboration Group leaders, and they'll provide feedback to me through email. But also, I want to let you know that I'm available by phone, by email, for anyone who wants to discuss any questions or concerns further. As I mentioned, reflecting back to April 6th, this was a few slides from that day. The very first thing we were talking about were our guiding principles for decision making within NTI. And that was supporting students, being very flexible in how we approach that, and then overdosing with communication, making sure we're communicating with students, with parents, in every possible way so that here, as we reach the final stretch, people aren't surprised by the expectations. Also, what we've been doing throughout the year, and I just thought it was important to kind of put it up here, was the that not only many of you were using Google Classroom, but this NTI portal for schools that was available for our parents, and how you all presented information to our students and to our parents so that they understood what the expectations were for NTI learning activities and ultimately what they would be, how you'd be determining grades here in the end. If you remember, Aaron Schneider talked with us about multiple types of platforms we may be using in this NTI environment. Not only the video conferencing platforms, but also Google Classroom and other options that we had. And I'm so impressed with how everyone's made that their own. We also talked about the difference between student attendance and student engagement. So, student attendance ultimately turned into the district was using the word participation. Are students actually connecting with teachers? Now, that's different than engagement and completing learning activities, and that's why we kept the NTI participation recording separate from the actual impact on grades. And again, just reflecting back on April 6th, how we were talking about what was the student experience going to look like in the way of this virtual environment through Google Classroom, through possible choice boards, if that were an option you chose, and through the types of learning activities they would use to demonstrate mastery in your content area. And then also, what did your experience, what should you be expecting for the NTI experience to look like for you and to make it manageable for yourself? So that brings us to these final 7 days and the end of year grading. So, grades can be posted starting this Friday, May 22nd. Students who've satisfactorily completed NTI, it's just as simple as posting the grade as you normally would. Now, as we've stated, the grade that you post cannot be any less than the grade they had on March 13th. And I trust that you've come up with a system in your grade book to help communicate things that impacted grades as well as how it impacted it in a positive way if students actually had an increase, but definitely not anything that had a negative impact on their grade as of March 13th. Now, if students were projected to fail, just as we would every year, we would have a plan in place for students in the way of a course recovery. So that's what we'll also be doing this year. And you can communicate with Mr. Jones. You can work with Mr. Cundiff if you have questions about possibly using Clever for that purpose. Now, students who are projected to receive an incomplete because they either were not participating, meaning showing up, or they were showing up but they weren't completing work. I mean, I've read your all's PLC notes. I understand that some students are turning in very little effort on work, or sometimes they're just turning in blank assignments. Uh, so um, so those students would receive an incomplete. That means they're not getting a grade. It doesn't mean they're failing. It means they're not getting a grade until they complete this work. And what you will do is you submit those names in a spreadsheet to Mr. Jones and simply indicate a very short reasoning for why they received the incomplete. And if it's as the slide says, if they did not participate or they didn't satisfactorily participate in NTI. Then you also want to describe a recovery plan. Now, this recovery plan may be universal for all your kids. You may want to tailor it for different groups of kids or tailor it for each student individually, just based on the nature of what you were expecting of students and your course and what they need to do in order to recover. Now, this recovery plan could happen through Clever, through Mr. Cundiff, if your course has um, a commensurate program available. It may also happen through ESS. Now, you may voluntarily participate in ESS if it's appropriate, and you can contact Ms. Beckley to learn more about that. This may also be something you simply let us know. You indicate the standards or the units that they need to complete in your subject area in order to recover that grade. And that's something that either we can organize through summer ESS, or they may just have to wait till the beginning of next year when we're in a position to allow them to recover in another structure based on how it is we start the next school year. Now, students who recover their grades through NTI beyond the end of this NTI school year, again, they're going to receive the grade that they had. At best, they're going to receive the grade they had as of March 13th, unless you tell us otherwise. So, a we are not going to be improving their grade over that March 13th grade that you assigned as the teacher of record. I want to encourage you to come to the Senior Drive event if you're healthy and if you're comfortable with participating in this type of environment. Um, ask you to show up no later than 8:15 a.m. so that we can get you all situated along the route that you see that we'll have around the student parking lot. I just need to help reinforce the social distancing, not only between you and other staff, but also you and students. You know, students may want to stop and get out of their car and give you a hug and give you gifts. You just got to remind them this is critically important that we maintain the social distancing expectations that are in that senior drive flyer and that I've discussed here. You've got to keep distance from them. You should have no physical contact with students. You should not be exchanging anything with students. And if students start violating social distancing, I've been directed to shut it down. It doesn't matter if we're 5 minutes into it, 50 minutes into it, or near the end, we will have to shut it down if students start violating social distancing. We just cannot be putting ourselves or everyone around us in that position of spreading COVID. And we don't want weeks from now people to look back and say, I think I had it, I contracted it because of what happened at this event. So, what you'll see is here's just a rough sketch of what they'll do. They'll be driving through the student parking lot around the outside edge. And what we would like to have you all do is set up either in your vehicle in a safe distance or even along the grass, along the edges or in the interior where there is grass. You can be setting up, lawn chairs and some foldable tents if you want to really make it an enjoyable event for yourself and just something that our students can celebrate as well. Some final thoughts here. I put it in an email, but professional development, if you don't have your 24 hours, there are lots of opportunities online. And also get ready to expect that an online professional development environment is probably something we're going to be learning to expect throughout at least the first half of next year, if not the entirety of next school year. Also, I know you all, many of you are wanting to get into your classrooms. We have been given permission to have very limited building access with my approval and my monitoring for teachers who just need to grab and go again. Just go in there and grab some things. We're not doing a all day closing up your classroom, putting everything away event. There's just not going to be a closing of the school the way we've traditionally thought of it. And my final thoughts to you are this, and that is, I hope you're taking care of yourself in every possible way, personally, professionally, spiritually, as well as physically, taking care of yourself because we're the March 13th, last day that we were in school. It's been a long way away, and I know it's had a significant impact on all of us in many different ways. It's had an impact on how we've been able to interact with many of our loved ones, uh, creating uh, creating distance, um, changing the nature of our relationships in many ways. So I really hope you're taking care of yourself and finding a new normal, so to speak, for especially for this upcoming summer, to stay healthy, um, and to address your self-care needs. I'm so proud to be part of this school community. I'm proud of you all for what we've accomplished. And remember, rebels, what you do makes a difference. Teachers, what you've done has made a difference.